The meeting of November 9th will come to order. Roll call.
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Gray,
Present.
Councilmember Clancy.
Here.
Councilmember Days,
Here.
Councilmember Fitch.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Okay. I believe we're going to start with the police. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. So police is first.
Chief Barton.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
did we state the purpose? Do we have to do that for the record?
Oh, that's right.
The purpose of the meeting and all that good stuff?
Yes. I didn't get the agenda until this morning when I get stuff late about the turn.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're legal.
The committee will discuss the proposed fiscal year 2021 budgets and general operations activities of the following departments: Police Department and Human Services. And Chief Barton, you want to get started?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. And thank you all for the opportunity to speak about the 2021 budget. Little overview about the budget. The 2021 recommended budget is very similar to the 2020 with the addition of the raises that were given to the police officers and the changes to the fringes and the insurance costs to the police department for a total of a budget of $157,457,471. Notably, we tried our very best to trim the budget and be within the exercise guidelines of the budget. And that required as you know, the 5 and 10% reduction exercise. All the police department had available to reduce was positions. So we took the approach that we would go forth with a zero growth budget and identify only those positions and salaries and money that we had currently when we did this, which started from 144,000, and we added the additional monies for the raises, which took us to about 151 million. And we cut 37 unfilled positions in the police department for police officers and 8 civilian positions in order to meet that total of $144 million. Those positions were, as I said, pardon me, unfilled at the time. We trimmed the budget as much as we could. We really emphasized trying to trim overtime and trying to trim any kind of excesses that we had, which were very minimal. This is the leanest budget that we've presented so far. And we really think that we have addressed these issues as best we could regarding using current resources and trying to stay within the budget guidelines. As you know, the core function of this police department is to provide services to the citizens of St. Louis County in the reduction of crime and making safer neighborhoods. That is our overall goal. We work very hard to do that, and we hope that we are within our budgeted guidelines and are able to provide these services. We addressed efficiencies that we thought were very important, to identify funding streams other than the general fund, which included the active solicitation of grants for the police department for a lot of our technical aspects, such as fingerprinting and the crime lab, and other initiatives. We also used asset sharing avenues to address some of these that were not funded, reclassification of several positions to save money and be more efficient, and we are in the process of reorganizing some of the structure of the police department to eliminate duplication of effort and better use of resources. And so form follows function within the police department structure. So those are just some of the few guidelines that we have been used to be able to present this budget within the dollar amount specified. If anyone has any questions?
I wanted to go over. Pardon me. Oh, I want you to go over. Is that me? I wonder what I'm doing. Hello? Oh, well, I don't know what to do. Let me try to go ahead.
Madam Chair, I think that some people aren't muted and it's making it difficult, I think, for the public to hear.
Okay, if everyone else can hear,
What'd I do?
phones or computers. I think we did have that problem with Chief Barton's last time we had a meeting with her. She had to keep her.
You are better now. I guess maybe the mute was the issue.
Yeah, with someone else. Okay, good. Except she's gonna have to unmute. Anyway, I did notice that the county executive budget really had no impact from the last budget. However, I did want to mention your overtime and your training and consort effort and the number of police officers that you're hiring. You are removing police officers, correct? You have some vacancies.
Yes, ma'am. We currently have 18 vacancies. We, moving into 2021, we had 55 vacancies for police officers, but when we cut the 37 position, that left 18 vacancies currently for police officers in going forward into the 2021 budget.
Okay, we've had some concerns the past few years about your overtime, especially because Prop P allowed you to increase, or your department to increase salary. The CBA agreement, the collective bargaining agreement was left at the same level, but you're still getting higher salary. Sergeants are negotiating their budget as well, or should I say their agreement. So why is overtime always an issue for your department? Meaning it increases almost every budget year, every year. And how can that be managed?
One of the issues with our overtime, ma'am, is that it is underfunded. We normally budget about $4 million a year for overtime. One of the things that the impact of collective bargaining has had on the increase in salaries is that we are not working as much overtime, but the overtime they're working is at a higher salary. So while the amounts look the same, it's actually less hours, but it costs more. So this is normally underfunded. We have never had the budget to fund that, as well as a couple other items in the police department. So we try as best we can to manage this overtime, but it is now being used at a higher rate of pay, and it is something that has lessened over time, but it is more expensive. So some of the things we're doing to try and lessen overtime are really some of these reclassification of positions, adding positions to the departments or units within the department that are the highest users of overtime, trying to strengthen those units so we can get it down to normal salary instead of overtime. As I said, we're working on reclassifying, some positions, but this has been a constant issue regarding the use of overtime within the department. As long as it remains underfunded, it will always require us going back for a supplemental appropriation to ask for more money for overtime.
The CBA agreement, it absorbs more and more of the general fund. Do you have any alternatives to control cost where we don't have to use so much of our general funds?
Well, as I said, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I was gonna say, do you need to answer that later?
I think, as we've spoken, some of the things we're trying to do to impact our footprint in the general fund is going out for grants, is finding other sources of money, is depending on other sources like the police foundation and other avenues that provide us funding for equipment that we couldn't normally buy or agreements we couldn't normally fund without asking for supplemental appropriations from the general fund. So we go out to grants, asset sharing, the police foundation, other charitable organizations to donate and help purchase equipment for unfunded or underfunded items in the budget.
And I'll ask maybe one or two more questions. Training has always been a important subject for me, not just to increase training, but the quality of training. That has been an issue for me personally, and I'm sure as well as several members of the council. I know that, is that included in your professional services line item? That's where the training is? 52110.
Hi there. This is getting feedback.
Chief, can you?
Okay, so the travel and training is its own line item under out of town travel and training, and that there did increase for 2021, small amount.
Ma'am, I'd also like to say that for the required mandatory training that the officers and staff here have to receive every year, and the out-of-town training and all of our academy funds, we spend about $6 million a year on training for just the state mandated training that we're required to have. Any additional training for that, money would have to come from other sources. But we do always seek quality training for our officers to get the best instructors we can with the money we have to be able to afford them. But we do spend $6 to $7 million a year on training.
Okay, but all of your training is not conducted out of town, correct?
Sorry, ma'am, I couldn't hear that.
All of your training is not conducted out of town, correct?
That's correct, ma'am, but we figure out-of-town training as well in the training budget because some of the training that special units need here is not offered through the police academy. So that's $6.5 million includes all of our training rolled in together.
Okay, so there's no training included under professional services.
No, ma'am.
Okay. I have one more. I'll ask my other questions later. Anyone else have a question?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Councilman Fitch.
Thank you, ma'am. Chief, you mentioned a cut of 37 unfilled police officer positions and 8 civilians. Did I hear that right?
That's correct.
What service impacts do you anticipate? What can the public expect because of this reduction and cut of police officers? That's a pretty significant number. So what can they expect?
Well, as always, we try to provide the same level of quality police service, but with a reduction in that number of people, a lot of the specialized positions, a lot of the community engagement positions that we had hoped to fund with these positions probably won't be able to be filled, and because they aren't funded. And without those positions, we have to give a priority to staffing patrol functions, officers that ride beats on patrol and answer calls for service, which limits our ability to have more input into specialized assignments.
Well, weren't there already vacancies prior to the cut?
Yes, ma'am, there are vacancies due to ongoing retirements and resignations, but after the cut, there are about 18 vacancies still. So the total number that we had prior to the cut was 55 vacancies.
Okay, Councilman Fitch.
Okay, Chief, going back to one of Councilwoman Gray's earlier questions, she mentioned about overtime. Last year, I brought up this issue under overtime, and that is how overtime is directly connected to the paid time off program and the traditional program. Could you explain to the public that's listening how that is impacting your budget, what that really means as far as paid time off PTO employees compared to traditional employees, and how that affects that overtime number that you've asked for?
Yes. When the department and county government switched over to PTO, or paid time off, or personal time off, I should say, it really changed the dynamic of how we fill opened positions when people take their time. And I'll explain. PTO time off is calculated at a different rate than a traditional employee. Traditional employees here in the police department get sick leave, get holidays, get all the traditional benefits. Paid time off people, all of their time is lumped into one bank of time. And when these people are given a certain amount of time per year, they earn it on a yearly basis in increments of however many time, depending on how many years they've been here. When they take their time off, we have to backfill those positions with other employees. And because they have so much more time and have qualifiers of when they have to take this time and they have to take time off, we have to backfill all those positions. So we have not been adding positions to the budget to backfill these positions, basically, that we need to be able to fill them while the other time is being taken off. So we should have been adding additional positions to cover for that need for more bodies, because now when we fill them, we do it at an overtime rate of time and a half as opposed to a normal pay rate at just regular straight time. One of the other things I wanted to mention too about to Councilwoman Gray's question about the overtime is we saw a huge impact on overtime this year, ma'am, due to civil unrest and the overtime that was generated from that. So that was a heavy expense this year.
Okay, and one last question for me is, one of the things we don't get to see, the council doesn't get to see, are what items that you have that have not been funded but are necessary, that you see as necessary, but there's no funds available. Do you have any of those kind of items that you want to share of what's not being funded?
Yes, thank you, Councilman Fitch. Definitely would like to ask for my 37 positions back, but that would be the highest priority. And because of changes and recommendations by the county counselor's office regarding retention of evidence, our property control has reached its maximum level to take evidence. And because of these changes, we anticipate over the next 5 years, 60,000 pieces of additional evidence. So we are looking for a new, basically, evidence storage facility that was not asked for because there was no money in the budget, but it's very crucial that we be able to do this because we are running out of room. We have as part of our strategic plan to leverage technology, I am trying to expand the Fusion Center and with the creation of a regional information and intelligence center to become a regional asset for the area, to include our municipal and city partners in the sharing of information. That also is not funded. We have been doing that with limited duty personnel and no bodies to speak of, but it's been very successful. But I'd like to move that forward in a much larger footprint. And as has already been discussed, the sergeant's collective bargaining agreement. At the time the budget had to be turned in, collective bargaining had not begun for the police department, so there was no way to really calculate the cost to fund the collective bargaining for sergeants, raises and sergeants and above, and the request for education pay for sergeants and above. So those are some of the things. We're also having to move into different quarters for some of our existing precincts. So these are all unfunded and not asked for requests.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Lisa? Councilwoman.
or perhaps even earlier, it has been since.
Can you start with your question again?
Oh, okay, sure. And then I shared that I believe it was earlier this year that the St. Louis Department established an Office of Diversity. I'm not sure if I've got the correct title. Director, is it?
Ma'am, if I got your question, because you're cutting out, you're asking what the name of the office is, and it is the Diversity and Inclusion Unit. Was that your question?
Councilwoman.
Well, in the first part of my. Yes. I'm sorry. I think I have a bad. Sorry.
Right.
Let me
I'm just
bring up
letting
my
you know.
video and see if that helps. Okay, my question though is, does that office have a budget?
I say that we did add some money for some training and consulting in that unit.
Okay, and what is the amount of that?
There's $50,000 for an outside consultant for some training.
Okay, and then
Madam,
can you? Yes, go ahead.
But what I was going to say was that the positions that are in there, the lieutenant's position and the sergeant's position, also add to the budget and are funded. So that is an additional budget item for that particular unit.
Okay, but then they have, in addition to the personnel associated with that office, there is $50,000 worth of funds for programs and services in that office. And what I am hearing is that those programs and services will be for an outside consultant to provide training.
Yes, that's correct.
Next question that I have. Actually, that is it for now. I might have a few more later.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Councilwoman Days, proceed.
thank you. I have a couple questions, please.
Yes, please.
And this is for the chief. Do you still have school resource officers?
Yes, ma'am, we have them in several different school districts.
How many?
I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't know the exact number, but we have them in several different school districts. I imagine there's probably 20 or 30 plus SROs in the local school districts.
So we have about, I think about 24 school districts, I believe, in St. Louis County. And so that would mean that you would probably have more than one in a building, I would assume, or maybe for a district. Is that the way it is handled?
The way it's handled, ma'am, is the school district identifies the individual schools that they would like SROs in, and they enter into a contract with us for that particular school. Some of them are just for that school, and others are particularly for that school, but also include a provision where the SRO goes and checks on other schools within that school district.
So you're thinking you have about 30 officers that are SROs? That's approximately. I'm not holding you to 30. I'm just giving, okay.
Probably more, ma'am.
Okay. And you are contracting out to some municipalities for their services. How many of those are you contracting out to right now?
Well, for police, we have police services. We have some that contract full contract. We have some that contract just for communications. And we have some that just contract for CARE, which is our computer-aided report entry system, and some for just dispatching. So
let's just break it down to the ones that you provide police services for. That's whatever they need in terms of arrest or investigations or whatever. How many municipalities do you service on that level?
we service the city of Fenton, the city of Wildwood, and the city of Jennings.
You don't service Pasadena Hills?
Oh, that is all the others, police departments or entities we serve, ma'am. Those are partial contracts.
And what about Norwood Court? Is that a partial contract as well?
I believe so.
Okay, so in terms of full service, you have 3 departments that you service. Are you being reimbursed fully for all 3 of those?
Yeah, yes, ma'am, we are.
Okay. Okay, that's all the questions I have for right now, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilman Harder.
Couple questions for the chief. I think about the time you came on 6-8 months ago, you announced you were reorganizing the police department for better operations. And I noticed in the police budget for this time around, a lot of those numbers have shift columns and priorities and zeroed out for the coming year. Are those shifts combinations and reclassifications of certain expenditures just so that it looks better going forward, that they're in the right place, or to eliminate some of those expenses going forward in some of these different areas?
I can speak to that. We rolled up the budget, and Paul Kreidler did submit a diagram to you, so I hope you got to see that at some point, where we took some smaller units and we rolled those budgets up into the umbrella of the division. And the purpose of that was it just made it easier to budget, to maintain, all the way through. So where you see those zeros, that just means, like, for instance, under 2336 security services, we rolled that entire budget up into the Division of Special Operations. Same thing with the crime lab, the police academy. We rolled them up into their division to make it easier to manage the budget.
So if you look at it, when you see these zeros, it looks like they've been cut, but you're saying they've combined with an item or other priorities, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. To follow up on what Councilman Fitch said, with the personal time off, do you know what our banking of those hours, or how much outstanding in that area that's hanging over our head when it comes to that overtime that we'd have to pay out to somebody if we had to?
I had looked at reports for that in the past. I haven't looked at it recently because it's a moving target. They continually are using leave and earning leave. So, we would have to run a report today to get an exact number for that. Because
if a lot of those folks, I would imagine, are a lot of senior folks that have built up a pretty good nest egg in those accounts, and if they were to leave, that liability would be on the police department to pay those out. Do you see that happening this year, or a big chunk of that being used to pay that out this year?
Well,
or next?
If they were to retire or terminate, there is a limit to how much we will pay.
What is that limit?
Well, it depends on the level of the how many years they've been here, and the PTO planned, it's like 304 hours for somebody with less than 5 years, and it moves up in that direction. Now, in the traditional plan, it's the 480 that they possibly could have earned in a year, plus whatever they've accrued for the next year, which would be a max of 720.
So the top level person could only get 720 hours paid out
Correct.
at any one time.
That's correct.
So if they accumulate more than that, they're working for free, or what happens? Or they just don't work those hours?
If they've planned it correctly, they might be on vacation a while before they retire. But if it's an unexpected termination, then they just lose it.
Okay. But I mean, if they're working, they're currently, and they hit that limit, do they not get overtime then, or it has to go to somebody else because they've hit their limit in their account, or do they keep?
Well, the tradition accrue it at the first of the year. So if they reach a max on December 31st, then that new accrual is added to it. And then they have to use whatever exceeds 720 before they retire or lose it. Same with the paid time off employees. They earn it each pay period. So as they're earning it, we don't cap it. We cap it at the end of the year. But
Okay.
as I said,
On your line item about medical supplies, it looks like you spent about $10,000 in 2019, and you budgeted only $1,000 in 2020. And then it's adjusted back 500,000. What's going on there?
well, the 500,000 was the COVID money that was added this year. So for 2021, I took that out because we're not going to need that next year, hopefully. But the difference, it could be that I moved that's that Narcan purchase, and I may have moved that to a different line item. I'm not exactly sure, but I know we have 10,000 in there for Narcan, so it's maybe not in that line item, but another one.
So, but it's now budgeted for 1,000 for the whole police department. Is that true, or is it just a portion of medical expenses or
Okay.
medical supplies? Medical supplies.
So medical supplies within the police budget, the $1,000 is probably just something miscellaneous, but there's a $10,000 line in there. I'm not exactly sure which line I put it in, but it is for Narcan. But are you thinking that that's different than like medical insurance and stuff?
No, I'm just saying just medical supplies. I guess that's first aid supplies, things that they use in the precincts.
Well, that would probably fall under law enforcement supplies, more stuff like that they might need.
Okay. A couple others I was thinking about here. So we talked about the overtime. So you're saying the reason for the overtime is that the hours are reducing, and this is probably for the chief and for Ms. Hill. You're saying the hours of overtime are reducing, but we're paying more for those hours when you are using them, correct?
That's correct.
And is there any way of using folks that are at the lower end of the pay scale to fill in for those cheaper hours than to hire a sergeant to do a private job in overtime?
What we try to do, because overtime here is distributed equally, but we do try to, say for security services, which is a large user of overtime because they have a lot of openings in there, we try to use a security officer as opposed to a police officer in there who works at a much lower rate of pay. So yes, we do that. We do try to spend, but if possible, we try to use the person that makes a lower salary.
So when overtime is available, who picks who gets the overtime and who doesn't?
Well, normally we like to try to get people who volunteer, but on occasions we have to request people work overtime. So we try to distribute it fairly. And it isn't fair to give it, to the person who's retiring, who's trying to raise up their retirement, and it's not fair to make the lowest person on the totem pole work it all the time. So we try to be fair, and we try to be as efficient as we can with the use of overtime.
But there's nothing in the contract that says you have to use a certain pay grade for all your overtime.
No, there isn't.
Okay, so you have some flexibility to get a lower pay for those hours.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for now.
Madam Chair,
Let me check with Councilman, Tracus real quick, Councilwoman Days. That will be everybody. So if he doesn't have questions.
I have no questions.
Great. Okay, so Councilwoman Days.
yes, I wanted to know from the chief, do we have any reserve officers? You're on mute.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am, we do not. And I did want to get the correct answer for you. We have 44 SRO positions.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Chair,
Yes.
I want to go back that I think I heard during Councilman Harder's inquiry. Said you did not budget anything in
I think Councilwoman Clancy has the same question I was going to ask, and you did go out, Councilwoman Clancy. But I think you're asking, why did you remove COVID or plans for 2021?
Yes, we did. Because those are being moved all to the CARES funding.
Councilwoman Clancy?
Yes, can you explain that a little bit? Because you say you did not budget for COVID because you didn't need that. And I because as we know, COVID is not going.
That's correct. So within the general fund this year, as the COVID pandemic started, we had to use the police budget to cover things. But then later on, the fiscal management created a separate fund for the CARES Act. So that is where all of the county money is going to account for all of the COVID expenses for the entire county. So while we have funded in our budget this year, they are taking those expenditures and moving them from our budget and moving them into the CARES fund so that they have a better picture of it, and that's where they're going to manage it. So going forward, anything that has to do with COVID will come from this CARES funding from the federal government that is been created within a county fund.
However, that federal government CARES money needs to be spent by December 31st.
I understand. So I don't know what the plan is for next year.
When the incur. I am concerned. Is this maybe he can light up?
I'm sorry, who are you asking for?
Mr. Kreidler.
Yes.
Is Mr. Kreidler on? Madam Chair, is Mr. Kreidler on? Do you think this is something that maybe he could shed some light on?
Yes, he's here.
We'll have to take a look at all of the COVID-related costs after December 30th when the Coronavirus Relief Fund expires, countywide, not just for police. So, for example, public health will be doing a lot of our PPE purchasing. And so as we get to that point, we will have to make adjustments going forward. I would expect multiple times throughout 2021.
Paul, are there any departments that you're aware of that have budgeted for COVID-related expenses in 2021?
I'd say the most significant is public health.
Okay. I mean, if the police department is an outlier here.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Oh, gosh.
Councilman Fitch.
Thank you. Another question for Paul. Paul, I noticed the police department in line item 525110 insurance asked for $1.3 million. The county executive said, no, you're going to have to budget for $3.6 million. Can you explain why that would be?
Yes, and we've talked about this with a number of our departments, and I mentioned it in my overview. We look at the county's self-insurance program, and we determine the amount of money we believe we will need in the fund, and we then allocate that out across all of the various funds that we budget based on a department's loss history. So with police being one of the larger areas where we incur loss, they will, by definition of how our allocation works, take one of the largest shares. And so we went ahead and we added that to the department's budget, not only police, but every department, when they were done with their submission, so that we appropriated the correct amount across all of our funds to move into our self-insurance fund. So it's effectively an insurance premium that we tell the departments, here's what you need to budget, and then we give them the funds to budget for that. So an important takeaway from that is that the police did not have to reduce any activities because of that. It's really a financing mechanism for our self-insurance program.
So that 3.6 million, without going into legality issues, is that big increase because of the Wildhaber lawsuit? Is that what it is, or is this, pending because of the Troy Doyle thing, or what's causing that?
No, I would say it's not Wildhaber because, as you know, we bonded out those costs. So I guess I would compartmentalize that and put it off to the side. When we look at all of our losses that we incur and the losses that our consultants project that we might incur in 2021, as well as the commercial insurance that we purchase, the largest of which is our property insurance, we make a forecast of what we believe our self-insurance fund will need to operate in 2021 and beyond. And we are on a 3-year funding program to try to have a reserve or an available balance in our self-insurance program that's roughly equal to half of outstanding reserves. So we want to build that fund balance up to about $3 million. And so what we'll do is we will try to make progress on that in each of the next 3 years. And then we'll reevaluate based on actual losses and actual insurance costs, and then recalculate that each year.
So last year they budgeted the same amount they asked for this year, 1.3 million. If now that they have to budget 3.6 million, if they didn't have to budget that double the cost basically, would they have been able to fill some of those 37 unfilled positions and the 8 civilian, or did I hear you say there's no correlation to those?
Yeah, there's really no direct linkage between those two things. The department's submission was based on the instructions we provided them. We handle things like employee fringe benefits and the self-insurance costs off to the side, and we don't make them take that into account. We cover those costs for them.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Councilwoman Hayes.
Thank you. While we're on here and while Paul is here, I guess I wanted to ask about the CARES Act money in terms of the municipal relief that was offered. Did the county participate in that, in the $68 per person? And because I was not aware that they were, at least we were told that they were not. Is that the case?
Well, I think that 60 per person came out to around 21 million, and that's the amount that we have allocated for the county services in the CARES budget.
So we did include the unincorporated areas of St. Louis County for that CARES Act money.
Yes, I know we added, we're at about 21 million total, and that's my understanding is the genesis of that amount was based on that per capita share.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, just a clarifying on that last question.
Yes.
Paul, I think if I understand this right, that 21 million was spread out through multiple county departments, not just the police department. Whereas in the municipalities, that money went directly to their public safety, their police department, and if they had a municipal fire department. Where the county decided not to handle it that way, the county decided for all of that money, that 21 million, to be spread out throughout the county for county-wide services, including municipalities. Is that accurate?
Well, the 21 million that the county is using has been used for a variety of things across county departments, purchasing PPE for the delivery of our services, technology enhancements that we've needed to provide services remotely, some of the initial costs of the emergency response back in March and April. So we've used it again for all of those types of things. I guess if the municipalities are using it for police and fire salary costs, we may potentially use some of it for that. We're still getting internal requests on a daily basis for things that we need in order to provide those services. Like, for example, today I got some technology needs from the recorder's office to continue to provide services. So we're continuing to work through that, and we're certainly cognizant of that December 30th deadline to get that all done.
Yeah, and I guess my point is the municipalities were able to take that $68 per head and keep it in their municipality, but St. Louis County shared that $68 a head with the entire county, not just the unincorporated areas. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, follow up, please.
Yes.
So specifically, if I'm looking at the first responders that are in unincorporated areas, they were not included in this. Yes or no?
Well, by first responders in unincorporated areas, I assume you're referring to county police who would cover those areas. So yes, we are including the county police in our 21 million for various needs of that department and all the other departments.
So your fire protection districts that are not necessarily in a municipality, are they included in this?
I don't know offhand. They're not, as far as I know, from the...
Those are first responders, and they are not in a municipality. So where is the reimbursement for them coming from?
I'll have to refer you to the oversight hearing for that information.
Okay, because
I'm
this
not aware.
also goes in with the police as well. And that has been the angst for me for some time now, that you have not included the police and the first responders and all the rest of the folks in the unincorporated areas for this money.
Madam Chair,
and yet they are providing the services.
Yes, Councilwoman Days, that's off the purpose of the meeting. You finished, Councilwoman? We can see you fussing, even though you can't hear you. Anyone else? Any other questions? Okay, well, any comments, Lynn?
Madam Chair.
Ma'am, may I say something?
Sure.
Councilwoman Days, I did want to get the correct answer for you when you asked about contracts that we patrol. Other than full service, we do patrol 19 municipalities and contracts for requests for like drive-through patrols and things like so. There are 19 additional ones, and I wanted to make sure that I got that to you.
And I guess my concern was, are you being reimbursed for all of those? I know at one point we did have a contract with Muni. They did not pay. And so I want to make sure that all of those that you are contracting with are paying.
Yes, ma'am. To my knowledge, we are being reimbursed for all of the current contracts that we have.
Thank you so much, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Councilman Tracus.
Thank you. Chief, just a couple of short questions. The 37 positions you'd like to get back, what does that constitute in terms of potential budget cost, if you know? And Paul, if you know, you can give us that.
The department, oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, average police officer is about 100,000 a year, so that'd be about 3.7 million.
3.7?
Yes.
Does that include the civilian employees or not?
No, that's just an average for 37 police officers.
Okay. And then this is probably for the chief. The budget as you submitted it, Chief, does that allow you to provide the same level of public safety that you were able to do in 2020?
I was going to say yes and no, sir. We will provide the same quality level of service we always have. But again, with the lesser positions, we're going to have to supplement it with overtime.
Now, my question, and that leads to my question. I thought that the positions that you've cut were unfilled last year, right?
Yes.
So help me understand then how not having those positions filled this year somehow impacts you in terms of providing the same level of public safety you did last year. I understand you got to pay for it with overtime, but my question is, in terms of not just the quality, but the manpower perspective, do you expect to be able to deliver the same level you did last year?
Yes, I expect us to be able to, am I muted? Okay.
You're good.
I expect to be able to deliver the same level of service. And what I want you to understand is even though those positions were unfilled, we still felt it here in the police department. There are a lot I have a lot of positions I would like to start, more positions in community engagement, different avenues we'd like to explore, more community programs. But I have to put the main bulk of my people in patrol positions because those are the people calling for the services. So even though they weren't filled, it was unfunded potential positions there that we could have filled for specialized units, for specialized areas. So yeah, they do indirectly impact us. If we could get them back and be able to fill them, then I think that we could provide additional services that we don't currently be able to provide.
Okay, and then if I understand Ms. Hill correctly, that cost is somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.7 million that would allow you to provide or obtain those officers and provide that additional service. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief. Thank you, Ms. Hill. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilman Water.
Yes. This is a question for Ms. Hill or the chief. Do you have a line item in the budget for lawsuits and the money that we've incurred in lawsuits over the last number?
That's the line item that Paul was talking about that he adds. That 3 million was added in, let's see, I'm not sure which line item that is. It's the self-insurance.
525110.
Okay, so it's 3 million. You just put a flat 3 million in there every year, whether you use it or not?
No,
Is that the idea?
No, they tell us how much to budget for that. That's something I don't even really touch. The budget office calculates that and adds that to our budget total.
And is that based on history of the police department or just across all departments, everybody shares the same?
It's based on usage. I think Paul can answer that better.
Paul?
Yes, the annual insurance budget is calculated based on our estimated losses for the year, as well as commercial insurance costs. We then allocate that out to our various departments and funds based on their historical loss history. All claims are paid from our self-insurance fund. So the police department would never pay a claim directly out of their operating budget. So in effect, our self-insurance program is a internal insurance company. And just like your auto policy, if you have an accident, your allocation or your costs may go up or down depending on your loss history. So what our 2021 insurance budget across all department does is it anticipates all potential losses that are forecasted by our loss consultant, our commercial insurance policies, and again, we are trying to build a balance of about $3 million in our self-insurance fund.
Is that something new, or is we've always done it?
No, that's a long historical practice.
Okay. And Chief, how many people do we have in the police academy in the next 2 classes?
Right now, I can tell you, in case Chief has, we have 22 recruits right now.
So is that 22 for the current class, coming classes divided? Can't hear the chief.
I'm sorry. That's for the current class that graduates in December. That's the, I believe, the only class that's in there right now. And the next class, should we have one, would start middle to end of January of 2021.
And do you have people designated for the January class?
Yes, we do.
How many?
Right around 15 or 16 so far, because remember, we had that 18-person limit.
Okay, so if the current class and that class gets hired on, are they filling existing positions, or you're still short 35 positions?
The way it works is we have continual loss of positions, okay? So through retirements and resignations. So they're filling current positions, but they're also filling future positions that happened while we're filling the current positions, because we have the steady stream of people resigning and retiring through the entire year. Average yearly is about 50 leave through resignation or retirement. So it's kind of like cyclical. It just keeps on going. We fill them, they go to the academy, those come out and take the places of people who have left. So it's not really filling the 35 or 37 positions that we've cut. It's filling the 18 that we still have left, plus the people that have already left this year.
Okay, so it's not keeping up with even attrition, is what you're saying?
No, it's not.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have another department, and we're at our hour point. Can we, Lynn, do we have public comments?
No, ma'am, we do not.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. We appreciate your time today. If anyone has any additional questions, they will contact you and or email you, I'm sure.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you to everybody who participated. I really appreciate your time.
Okay, next we will move to Human Services Department. I see Ms. Jackson Jennings, but I don't see her.
Good afternoon. I am Andrea Jackson Jennings. I am the Director of Human Services, and I will be presenting today the 2021 recommended budget. This slide shares the department's mission as well as the vision. I have with me today department key programming staff, Shannon Koenig, Deputy Director and County Housing Officer, Dr. Yusuf Scoggin, Director of Office and Family and Community Services, Teresa Quarles and Allison Hewitt, Interim Directors of Women and Children Services, Greg Leposo, Director of Workforce Development, Amy Ellis, Interim Director, Office of Community Development, Marva McJoy, Interim Director of Finance and Information System, and Pamela Yates, Manager of Personnel. The administrative support services for the department include FSIS, which is a team of 7 professional accountants, including their director, that assists with fiscal monitoring as well as payment of invoices for subrecipients. The personnel team also assists with employee benefits as well as assisting with the hiring processes of new employees. The Division of Women and Children Services consists of 1 facility, and that is the Kathy J. Wyman Shelter. It is a 24/7, 365-day operation. It is centered around victims of domestic violence. It is to serve those on an emergency basis who have experienced intimate partner violence. I am also thrilled to share that the team out at the Kathy J. Wyman Shelter works across departments, mainly with the police department. We frequently get calls from the community policing team if a unfortunate set of circumstances are police in need of clothing or toiletries or toys for kids. They reach out to us, and to date, we've been very responsive. So it just goes to demonstrate that we're not just impacting those women and children in the shelter, but if we get a call from one of our peers in a different department, we will be very supportive of any of their needs. This slide shows you a list of the additional services that the shelter offers. In addition to emergency shelter, they also offer temporary shelter, case management. Any woman that comes in with her children, there's a nurse that assesses them, in addition to providing meals and therapy. The County Older Resident Program is under the Office of Family and Community Services. They focus on accommodating our senior population by way of providing transportation services, tax services, caregiver respite, and even home care and repair. With the pandemic, a lot of the programs and services are being shifted primarily to case management. Also, we offer a transportation program, but it has been suspended because those services are offered by volunteers who are over the age of 65 and they fit in that high risk category. So the staff right now are focusing on, as I stated, wellness checks, case management, and they're also making home deliveries from food pantries, as well as curbside pickups from grocery stores. Next, we have the County Veterans Program. They also offer case management and advocacy. Right now, they're also focusing on case management as well as linking our veterans up with the VA administration, so that they can ensure that their benefits are in place in case they're in need of support. They're also focusing on homeless prevention and assisting with utilities. Some of the community outreach has also been set aside because of the pandemic. Youth services, as most of you are aware, the county operates a youth center in Spanish Lake, and these are some of the programs and services that are offered at the center. Most recently, over the last 3 to 4 years, we've expanded our services to include a shower and laundry facility, as well as ensuring that the youth have snacks as well as dinner from time to time. This program or this service is a direct response to a 2007 needs assessment that was conducted in collaboration with the planning department. So the stakeholders, residents got together and we had some focus groups just trying to brainstorm on how to keep the youth engaged in a positive way, and especially those youth that don't thrive in a traditional educational setting. So we ensure that Parkway AEL is there to provide the educational component. Next, we have the Housing and Homeless Services Unit. St. Louis County has a new Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The revenue received will be from the sales of the medical marijuana, and those funds will be spent in accordance with the priorities outlined in Ordinance 27665. I'm sorry? Okay. Also, you will see listed where the focus and the areas will be, where we will be expending those resources in and on. It will be for single persons, head of household, in poverty with children. I won't read them all, but seniors 65 that especially are renters. And we'll also be focusing on areas in most need and those areas that have a high vacancy rate. Shifting over to homeless services. Homelessness is defined by HUD as any individual that is unsheltered or living in an area that is not habitable for humans. St. Louis County Homeless Services team works in collaboration with the Continuum of Care. That is a group of 70 to 90 stakeholders ranging from hospitals to school districts to other homeless service providers. And the main goal, they meet once a month. The main goal of the Continuum of Care is to leverage those resources and think of strategies to address one of the most vulnerable population, and that is with getting adequate housing. The funding sources right now include HUD, which are the Continuum of Care funds, the Emergency Solution Grant, as well as the Housing Resource Commission. We also recognize that partnerships are very important in the homeless space. And so the homeless team have been working on expanding relationships and partnerships, especially those with the St. Louis County Housing Authority. The St. Louis County Housing Authority set aside vouchers for the unhoused to ensure that they have an adequate place to reside. St. Louis County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, as well as the Behavior Healthcare Network and the VA community and other philanthropic organizations.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
I just wanted to find out if you can kind of more so just touch on your budget items, unless someone on the committee wants to go through the entire presentation. Is there anyone? If you could just touch on.
In fairness to the director, she prepared it. I think we owe her the opportunity to deliver her presentation to us.
Okay, I know that people were kind of used to the previous, that's how we usually did it in the past, and it was for other reasons, because we had a hard time getting information. But if you, anything that you think we really need to know, that's fine. I don't mind going through the presentation. But I just wanted to let you know that you didn't have to touch on everything, because of course we have it in front of, I have a copy. I don't know if anyone else does or not. And so I just wanted to let you know, but I don't want to tell you not to read it. No, that was not my intention.
Okay. Okay.
As a committee member, I do appreciate this extensive information and would like for Ms. Jackson Jennings to continue.
Okay, that's all I want to make sure, because I know we hadn't done this this year. Okay, proceed.
Okay. Thank you. Office of Community Development joined the Department of Human Services back in December of 2019. And so we're excited to have that group with us as well. They offer the Home Investment Partnership Program for FY 2020. The allocation was a little over 3.6 million. Their funding typically is used for, as you see, their housing production, down payment assistance, as well as community housing development organizations. It is 100% grant funded through HUD. So I just wanted to make sure, although it's not in the general fund, it's always important to share with you the other programs and services that the constituents of St. Louis County are able to benefit from. Also with that is the Community Development Block Grant Funds. It's a little over 5.6 million. It supports municipalities and any infrastructure concerns they have, as well as nonprofit and local governments through a competitive notice of funding agreement. Within that program, they also offer home improvement and lead hazard control program. Workforce development is 100% grant funded as well. The primary focus on workforce is for dislocated adult workers, underemployed and unemployed individuals. Some of our partners or our subrecipients include Family Workforce Centers of America, Employment Connections, as well as International Institute. They assist with the limited English proficiency program. What you see before you is the high growth and high demand industries. And underneath that are the positions or jobs that are associated with those industries. A couple of data points that we thought would be interested in highlighting. The county has satellite offices, and with those satellite offices, we either have county staff that are managing it or our subrecipient staff. That includes the Met Center, the Crossing. There's an office in Seven Hills and Florissant, and there's a small office in North Oaks. So the foot traffic for those three locations you'll see is just over 1,200 through September. And in comparison to last year to this year, through July 1st, you can see just the number served at those centers was 6,300, a little over 6,300 last year. Now we're only 1,200. You can see the adult and dislocated workers enrolled in training programs last year, 178, as compared to this year, 44. And I know you guys have the presentation, so I won't go through all of that, but I just wanted to show you that for comparison. Again, workforce development is 100% grant funded. Some of the strategic priorities that the department focus on, which are also in line with the county strategic priorities, encourage true community partnerships, provide equitable, responsible governance, increase quality of affordable housing, and accelerate the rate of individuals receiving services by maximizing the efficiency and access to services. And then finally, leveraging job center and community partnerships. Our 2021 budget highlight includes a recommended appropriation of $4.6 million. It's an increase of 5.9 from 2020, and we are that is due to the net difference in the 3% merit raise and fringes, as well as the unfunded position that was placed in the budget for 2021, a decrease in revenue from 2020, an increase in appropriations, again, due to the unfunded salary positions, and a decrease in positions. I am of the opinion with the 2021 recommended budget that the department will be able to manage without the implementation of the 5 and 10% reductions. This is a graph of just showing you where the allocations are. So 20% for the county older resident program, 26 for administration, 26 for the county youth program, and then the other programs, veterans and homeless, would fall under other. Again, the workforce program and the community development program are 100% grant funded. The efficiencies that the department has identified, we will continue to participate in online training, such as LinkedIn Learning that the county has recently invested in. The department has also invested in a software. A lot of our employees are required to maintain their credentials, such as their licensure. And so we've purchased a software that'll help with the training, which will reduce the cost of out-of-town training. And then we've also purchased a case management system that could be used across divisions so that we can make sure that we're tracking all of the appropriate data. And then lastly, we will be implementing the GEO for creating dashboards to provide data for mapping current customers so that we can be a little bit more intentional on our program decisions and identifying underserved populations and being strategic with recruitment and marketing and offered services. Each department was asked to go through the 5 and the 10% cut, which was a really challenging process, especially for this department. It's so small and has a small budget. But if we were asked to proceed with the 5 and the 10% budget, then we would have had to eliminate positions which are tied back to human capital, which would have directly impacted the level of service, if any services, that we would have been able to provide our constituency, along with supplies and maintenance and construction to our infrastructure, to our fiscal infrastructure. I think it's also worth mentioning that this department has been instrumental in the response to COVID-19. You have a very dedicated, committed group of professionals in the Department of Human Services. A lot of them have not taken any time off since March. Most of them work around the clock to ensure that the needs are being met, that we're responsive to the executive body as well as the legislative body. I know I've spoken to a lot of council persons as well as their aides, and just trying to ensure that your constituencies are being linked up to the appropriate services. So I just want to commend the entire team in the Department of Human Services, because often we hear what we're not doing, sometimes more so than what we are doing. And I just want my team to know how much they're appreciated. So having said that, you can see that the department we are responsible for manning the emergency command center. That is during any emergency. We are to mobilize there, and initially back in March, we were there 7 days a week. Now we're just responding to calls 5 days a week. We collaborated with Operation Food Search to hand out meals 3 days a week at the youth center in Spanish Lake. We coordinated services with the regional response team. That is a team of private and public partners that were responsive to the needs of the community in a targeted manner. We provide case management and food delivery to the county managed hotel for those that are in quarantine. We operated a pop-up shelter in North County Recreation Center for those that were unhoused. We respond to correspondence and phone calls for the executive and legislative branches regarding linking services for the constituents. And then currently the department program and fiscal team works with other interdepartmental work groups to support the humanitarian relief efforts. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you for sitting through that. I appreciate it. I know a lot of the information may not have been new to some of you, but I just wanted to make sure that I highlighted just a few of the programs and services. So thank you.
Great. Do you have any significant changes that you like to point out in your budget?
Any significant changes that I'd like to point out? Nothing significant. Nothing significant outside of what I've already highlighted, the 5%, 5.9 increase.
Okay, so a couple of questions. COVID and CARES Act money. How has that affected your budget and your services?
We are getting CARES Act dollars to deploy, right, in the community. So we will be using those funds for rental assistance as well as utility assistance.
Has it helped you be able to increase services?
It will. It hasn't as of yet, but it will.
Okay. Professional services. That was zeroed out.
I'm sorry?
Professional services.
Okay.
Was that zeroed out? Am I seeing that correct?
Under which budget are you looking at, ma'am?
Page 119.
Yes, it went from 775 to 0. Mm-hmm.
And what was the causation for that? Or was it transferred to another department? I mean, line item.
It was just eliminated altogether. It was only $775, so we just figured that it looks like the previous year was 40,000, so it went down to so it wasn't anything significant that we thought we needed.
You also zeroed out your computer maintenance and small tools, miscellaneous equipment.
Yeah, we just went through and purchased new computers. So we just got all new computers.
Okay. So did that increase somewhere else?
No, it was money left over from previously.
Okay, good. And my other question. What is your highest budget item as far as services are concerned?
Our highest budget item as far as services are concerned?
Yes, RDP.
I would attribute that to, when you look at the pie chart, 26% of our operating budget goes to the youth. And the Kathy J. Wyman Shelter Homeless Services, as well as the Veteran Services.
Is that the including Youth on the Rise?
Yes, ma'am.
And any other youth program?
Yes, ma'am. The County Youth Program, 26%, and then the other 28% is for Wyman Shelter, the Homeless Shelter, or the Homeless Services, as well as Veterans. A large portion of that is for a 24/7 operation. The Kathy J. Wyman Shelter.
Okay, you misunderstood or you couldn't hear me probably. That's what happened. The County Youth on the Rise. Any other?
Any other what? I'm sorry.
Youth program?
No, that's the only youth program that we operate.
Okay, that's what
And then also, I misspoke on the $40,000. That $40,000 was moved over from professional services. That was for our ambulance services that we had allocated for homeless services during the COVID response, so that we would make sure that any individual that didn't have transportation from the hospital could get to the COVID positive hospital hotel. But we moved that line item over to the CARES Act.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilman.
Thank you. AJ, just a couple things. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund you mentioned in your presentation, do you expect that to have any revenue that will be coming into that fund this year?
I'm of the opinion if it does, it's going to be very, very low, seeing that the businesses just opened up, less than a month ago. So I'm not certain that we'll see that much this year, Councilman Fitch.
So you have not put anything to spend that revenue, is that correct?
I'm sorry?
You haven't included anything in your budget to spend any potential revenue from marijuana sales, is that right?
Right.
And one last thing, in 2019, you spent a little over $76,000 for vacation, pay off when people retire, but you budgeted nothing for this coming year. It's the second department we've seen that the Prosecutor's Office did that. Do you expect no retirements for the entire year?
So what we've done every year around this time, we send out an email and we just ask if anyone plans on retiring, right? We have a list of all of those individuals that are eligible. And to date, no one has mentioned that they wanted to retire. So we honor the honor system for that.
And if they do, you would have to be with that, right?
1 minute, Jackson Jennings, can you mute whenever you're not speaking? We got the same issue in our last presentation for some reason. And when I hate to have you do that, but it helps us to hear better.
AJ, were you able to hear my question? So if you have someone that does retire, but it's unplanned, you'll have to absorb that in your budget somehow. Is that accurate?
So we should have a number of vacant positions.
Okay.
And we can use those monies for that.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Proceed.
thank you. Am I next?
Yes, Councilwoman Days.
Oh, okay, thank you. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Wyman shelter. What is your maximum capacity there?
It's a 39-bed facility, but we can house up to 41 women and children.
And that's the only one that you have in the county of that nature?
That is the only domestic violence shelter in St. Louis County. Yes, ma'am.
And what is unique about that one?
What is unique
about it? Yeah, because you mentioned you're utilizing, I think, the police and some other things that you mentioned are there. So why is that? I'm trying to figure out.
I think it's just the fact that we're the only shelter, domestic violence shelter in the county, that makes it unique. And it also makes it unique because we have established relationships in the community, such as the police. So when they're in need of a certain support, they call on us. Because we have women and children there, if they're faced with a tragedy in the community where there are very limited resources, they reach out to us and they know that, we would be able to use our platform to try to support them. And so that's occurred a couple of times this year.
Okay. Did I hear you mention that you have your own human resources department? So you do your own, it doesn't go through the county? Did I hear that correctly?
I have one person that is a manager in personnel, and she works in partnership with the county personnel department, but she helps because of the volume that we have coming through. She helps with the paperwork. She helps with the interviewing process. She helps with the benefits. She sets up all the testing for drug. She's just the administrative person that helps us with that. I don't know that the county personnel would have that type of bandwidth to do that.
Well, I don't know how they do their own, if there's something different, and maybe each department is like that. I'm just not aware of that. Would you talk, I need to, are you in charge of the Met Center?
I don't manage the Met Center, but one of our partners is housed in the Met Center.
And which one is that, please?
The Family Workforce Centers of America, Carolyn Seward.
Okay. I have not seen a budget for that department or that building or whatever house is there. I haven't seen that in the budget, and maybe Paul can point me to that a little later on, of where the money is for the Med Center going forward. But let me go on to because I believe there has been some change in the CDBG funds and how that's distributed. Is that correct?
I'm not familiar with that. Can you expound a little bit on that for me?
Well, my municipalities were contacting me that there had been some change in how the allocation was supposed to work. And so I don't know that. That's why I'm asking. It's a budgetary, and I do see Shannon here on the call, so maybe she can answer that.
Good afternoon, Councilwoman. No, not to my knowledge, it hasn't been changed.
So they still maintain the same allocation that they had previously?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, that's good. That's what I'll tell them. Thank you so kindly. Take care.
You finish your questioning?
Yes, ma'am. I said, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, Madam Chair. Hello.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me ask Councilwoman Clancy to finish with the committee first.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to go back to something that I thought AJ share. I think you say that the Weinman shelter is the only domestic violence shelter in the county. Is that what I heard?
Yes, ma'am.
No, I understand that it's county run, but there are no other violence shelters in St. Louis County.
Yeah, there are agencies that maybe lease hotel space on an emergency basis, but St. Louis County has the only domestic violence shelter.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I heard that correctly. I have no further questions for you all, but I did want to comment on how much I appreciate and see every day the work that you and your team are putting in during this COVID crisis. On the ground in my community, hearing from people that are navigating the challenges that this brings, and it has been noted by many people how much they appreciate getting to work with you all. Especially, I have noticed a lot of appreciation for Mr. Yusuf Skagen in the homeless department. And I know I have been involved in meetings with Yusuf, talking with other leaders across the region about the issue of homelessness. And I especially wanted to give him a shout out, but really to all of you, I want to recognize all of the effort and time you have put in to take care of our region's most vulnerable residents, as always, but especially during this crisis. So thank you.
Thank you for the acknowledgement. We really appreciate it.
Councilman Harder.
Yes. Hi, AJ. Good morning. Good afternoon, I guess it is.
Hi, Councilman.
How much money of the CARES money has moved through your department since April, would you say, estimate?
I have that. Hold on. Let me find it for you. Marva, if you're on the line, if you could chime in while I look for the latest data information.
Good afternoon. This is Marva McJoy. I'm here. I'm actually trying to pull the email that we sent this morning with the updated report. And I believe it's around 26 million allocated to our area. Just a second.
And I guess the second question is, of that 26 million, how much has been spent so far?
That's the report, the part that I'm looking at here now.
Marv, I'm pulling it up as well. I thought I printed off.
Okay, of the 26 million, we've spent 12 million of it, and we have in encumbrances and requisitions, we have 6 million encumbered and 645 million in requisitions, roughly 3,000,006 remaining unspent.
Okay, so those numbers again, I didn't hear it right. 26 was allocated.
I'm sorry. Let me look at the report here. It's 23. I'm sorry. 23 million was allocated to us. Of that, 12,000,007 has been spent to date. Encumbrances, we have 6 million. Requisitions, 645 million. I'm sorry, 645,000. And then we have remaining right now 3,000,006 of the total 23 million.
When you say the 6 million, the encumbrances, that's just reserved for something that you're waiting to implement that project?
Right.
Okay. And then the 645,000 is for what?
The 645,000 are for requisitions that we just started that we're going to do payouts on shortly.
So you're saying you got a $3 million balance that has not been spent?
Yes.
Yes. And is there plans to spend that or give it back to either the rest of the county or to the feds?
There's plans, as far as I know, to get it all spent.
Councilman Carter, yeah, I want to weigh in here. Yeah, the goal is to have all the funds expended. I think some of the organizations may not be reporting or getting all the invoices in, but the goal is to absolutely make sure all the funds are spent.
Is your deadline still December 30th to spend everything?
Correct.
Any notifications from the feds that would get extended anyway, or do you know of new funds coming in for 2021?
I've not heard that, sir.
Okay. And what would that 3 million be spent on? Shouldn't you be making that decision now, or have you made a decision, or?
Yeah, that wouldn't be a call for me. I think that would be a call that the administration or the CARES Act, leadership team would be able to speak to.
Okay. How many employees does your department have?
68 employees, 68.5 right now. We have 80 positions.
80 positions in the budget?
Correct.
Okay. And are you going to fund those or fill those?
The goal would be to do so.
And your budget is justified to fill 80 positions?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And most that difference there of 12 positions, are they part-time, full-time?
It's across the board. It's some part-time and some full-time.
Yes, those are lower level positions.
Yeah, a lot of are part-time. Yes, sir, they would be. They wouldn't be management position or middle management positions.
Okay. Okay, that's all I needed for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Proceed.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Councilwoman Clancy triggered a question that I forgot to ask Chief Barton when she had her presentation earlier. AJ, maybe you could help with this. I had heard, and I didn't get a chance to ask the chief, that they added an officer to help with homeless issues in the police department. Are you familiar with that? And will they be working with your group? How will that work? Do you know?
I've not heard of them adding that position, but I do know that my team works closely with the CIT in the police department.
Okay, and that might be something you would want to have a discussion with Chief Barton about, because I didn't get a chance to answer it, but I'd heard it from another police department source.
I know that she's very interested in that, Councilman. We've talked about it before, as well as domestic violence. Those are two areas of interest that she's expressed to me.
So since it's not in your budget, that would be something that she would have to absorb in her budget. Is that right? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Can you clarify what CIT is? I saw this somewhere.
Crisis intervention.
Anyone else have any questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, AJ. Good to see you. Am I correct that vast majority of the, give me a minute here, 6% increase in your budget is due to the merit raises suggested or advocated for by the county executive?
5.9 is attributed to the raises as well as an unfunded position in the 2021 budget.
Right, but those raises were advocated for by the county executive?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so other than that, your budget pretty much is static?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, AJ.
Madam Chair?
AJ?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. The raises. I know the executive requested those raises. Is that something you think would be a great benefit to your staff? I think we talked about this before.
Absolutely, it would be a great benefit to the team. I'm sure they would greatly appreciate that.
Okay. Yes, Councilwoman.
Yes, I did have a question about the vacant positions. I believe you mentioned you had 12. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And how long have those been vacant?
For quite some time.
And so, but you're still budgeting those because you're hoping to fill those?
That is correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are those vacant positions in a certain area, like the majority, or is it spread out?
They're spread out across the department.
Okay. And again, I kind of wanted to go back to what you guys are doing amidst this COVID-19 situation. Kind of piggyback on Councilwoman Clancy. I know you guys are doing a great job providing a lot of services, food, and a lot of things for families, children. You want to kind of touch on how your the needs, I guess, should I say, have changed due to COVID and possible increases of services.
Yeah, I think because we all recognize this is uncharted water, we knew that the need was enormous prior to COVID-19. With those individuals that are working in certain industries, the hospitality industry, they are the ones that are suffering the most across the board. I would say individuals are suffering, but with this pandemic, it's just brought it to the forefront as it relates to those that we see with the food insecurity areas, the homeless area. It is just unfortunate, the stories that we're hearing on a daily basis. I know individuals have mentioned that the homeless team is out and about, and we get calls from the park rangers, from the police department stating that there are encampments that are set up in various parks. We get calls from individuals stating that, X, Y, and Z, if their utilities aren't paid by this certain time, then they're going to be in the dark and not have heat. So those calls that we normally would get on a regular basis now are amplified. So the team is working around the clock, as I stated, to make sure that those individuals get the attention that they deserve.
Did you still spend quite a bit of time at the EOC?
We're doing it remotely, but we are still charged with managing that piece of it as well.
Oh, great. So yeah, I'd like to add my appreciation. I remember when this first started, you were spending quite a bit of time at the EOC, no time off, even on weekends, you and I'm sure others, and we do appreciate your department tremendously. Not just now, but for everything you do, we appreciate it. I just want to add as well. And thank you so very much for what you put together for us. It was a great presentation.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank the council for their ongoing support. We really appreciate that. And we look forward to working with you in the new year.
Madam Chair, I have one more, if I may.
Sure.
Yeah, and I should have mentioned this to Chief Barton when we were hearing from the police as well. A couple weeks ago, we heard from the Public Health Department about their budget, and one of their unfunded mandates was around substance use disorder and mental health treatment programs and services. And it seems to me, based on my background and training in social work especially, that when we don't invest in those kinds of programs, we pay in other places, particularly around things that your department is focused on, and also many of the things that our police department is focused on and has to respond to. So I'm really concerned about that unfunded mandate in the Public Health Department, and I'm wondering to what extent hearing that, I'm sure you already were aware of that, gives you some pause and makes you want to reconsider maybe some of the things in your budget.
That's very true. And to that point, if we had unlimited resources, we would be able to expand some of the programs and services that we offer, especially around the social determinants of health. As you know, that impacts us greatly. So to your point, if we had additional resources, we would be able to execute more programs and services in the community.
Your budget, though, any additional investments, particularly in those areas, considering that we're probably going to see an increase in the need in the community for those kinds of services related to substance use disorder and mental health. And I think that's only obviously going to be exacerbated by the continued impact of COVID.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Thank you. Hey, AJ, just a follow-up question. Those 12 unfilled positions, how long have they been unfilled?
I would say the last year we were, everything was placed on hold, Councilman Tracus. So vacant positions were being asked to be held. So we weren't filling them.
And can you give me a ballpark number of the amount that constitutes of your budget? Those 12 positions?
I can get that back to you. I don't have that in front of me.
That's fine. Fair enough. And then, well, I'll go ahead and ask it anyway. If your budget was cut to a degree based on the fact that there are unfilled positions, there's nothing stopping you from coming back and asking for a supplemental appropriation if you in fact found the ability to fill those positions. That'd be fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you, AJ. Thank you, Madam Chair.
any other questions? Do we have public comments?
No, Madam Chair, there are no public comments.
Okay, I just want to check one more time if there are any other questions. Did you have anything to add, AJ?
No, again, nothing that's not already been stated. I just appreciate the relationship and the support. And I want to thank my team again for all of their hard work and dedication.
Great. Okay, with that, I guess we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposition? Well, thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of the day.